just showed up. Because he just said he needs no introduction.
Okay. Just want to start off by just saying how glad I am to be back here at Westside. It really does mean a ton for me to be here, and I know Allie really wanted to come, and she's missing it, and she's missing you guys, and just missing this place. Being in Texas, I've preached at a lot of different congregations in school and traveled to a lot of different places, and I mean this when I tell you guys this. Westside is something special, and Westside is something different. So, I am here to give an update as to the work at the Brown Trail School of Preaching and essentially what's been going on in the past year that I've been gone. And last week I finished up finals on a Wednesday. Thursday I had to go to school for more final stuff, and then Friday, this is an excuse, Friday in a rush I made this PowerPoint. So it might not be the prettiest thing you've ever seen, but it'll probably convey the information across in hopefully an okay manner. So, as I said, I am Tanner Smith. I am a second-year student now at the Brown Trail School of Preaching. And I want to start off this introduction. Actually, one sec. Let me grab my iPad. I have notes on here for me.
Could you, some people having trouble hearing,
Okay.
so I can turn this up a little, and then we can also maybe talk closer to the mic.
Okay, yeah, I got you. Is that better?
Can't hear it. Oh, can you hear all right now? How's that?
Oh, man.
Better?
Now I'm losing stuff. Okay. So to begin, we'll just talk a little bit about, why we as a church need preachers and why they're so important to us. To begin, they proclaim the gospel to the lost. There's an evangelistic aspect to a preacher that is something that isn't necessarily solely the preacher's job, but there is an aspect of the preacher that they have a more of a duty to evangelize than other portions of the congregation because of how much time they have to put into study and their outreach aspect of it. To begin with Romans chapter 10 in verse 14. There Paul writes, "How then shall they call on him in whom they have not believed? And how shall they believe in him of whom they have not heard? And how shall they hear without a preacher?" As I said, the preacher is in a special situation. They have a greater ability to study than most of the congregation. They have a better understanding of how to reach the lost as well, Lord willing. And a preacher and the leadership really should lead the charge in the work of evangelism, in the work of seeking that which was lost, if you want to bring it to Luke chapter 19 and verse 10. But beyond this, we also need preachers because at the end of the day, they are teachers. They're here to edify and teach the local body of believers. Jesus Christ was referred to as a teacher 45 times within our 4 accounts of the gospel. And beyond this, those who Jesus Christ taught, the apostles themselves, were teachers as well. Paul referred to himself in 1 Timothy chapter 2 and verse 7 as a teacher of the Gentiles in faith and truth. Beyond this, the apostles, they taught people. And guess what the people they taught did? They turned around and they taught people as well. These men were also teachers as well. 2 Timothy chapter 4 and verse 2. Preach the word, be ready in season and out of season. Convince, rebuke, exhort with all long-suffering and teaching. So, the men the apostles taught were teachers, and then guess what? The people they taught were teachers as well. It's a continual flow of teaching. 2 Timothy chapter 2 and verse 2, and the things that you've heard from me among many witnesses, commit these to faithful men who will be able to teach others also. So preachers help give us tools to properly break down Scripture and understand what various authors meant by various audiences. Their main goal is here to edify the body and to teach them. And this is something that, within the churches, we understand that we need teachers and we need preachers, but something beyond even this, we need good preachers and we need good teachers. Because people can, come and they can be a preacher at a local congregation and they can, fill that pulpit role, but if they're not truly edifying the body and if they're not truly raising the knowledge levels, raising the evangelistic efforts, raising just the overall congregation, what good are they doing? So, gospel preachers, they need to be teachers. And beyond this, they also serve as examples to others. 1 Timothy chapter 4 and verse 12. Let no one despise your youth, but be an example to the believers in word, in conduct, in love, in spirit, in faith, and purity. Here Paul is writing to Timothy, who was a preacher. So the body benefits from sound men properly teaching God's word. The issue is getting sound men into pulpits. As we know, congregations across the United States are unfortunately shrinking, and the amount of congregations are yet again unfortunately shrinking as well. I was going through and looking on a state-by-state basis. This was published by the 21st Century Christian. And you can look at each state and see how many congregations are in each one. So I kind of went through and peeked at it. And you look through the Bible Belt, and it's like, thousands and thousands and thousands. And then you get up to Washington, and it's like 1,000. And then you look over at Idaho, and it's a couple hundred. And then you start looking at, different congregations or different states around the West, and it's less than 100 congregations of the Lord's church. How sad is that? There are people out there who are ready to hear the gospel, who are searching for the truth, yet the Lord's church is not to be found. It's unfortunate. In 2010, in the Churches of Christ, there were 1.6 million attendees and 12,584 congregations in 2010. By 2021, there were 1.1 million attendees. It shrunk 500,000. And 11,875. It shrunk about 700 congregations across the U.S. Compiling on top of this, there's also, as I said, an immense preacher drought. So, as I said, I am going to preaching school to, Lord willing, help the issue in any way I can. But why preaching schools? Why go the preaching school route rather than maybe going to a Bible college and getting a 4-year degree or going that route? Well, to begin, costs. If I were to go to a private university, let's say Freed-Hardeman, and I go there and I attend for 4 years, I'm looking at anywhere, I've heard different numbers, so take it with a grain of salt, anywhere from like $33,000 a year to $50,000 a year room and board. So do that 4 years, do the math. I'm looking at, $120,000 to $200,000 in debt. So we have a preacher shortage, and small congregations like us, we're looking for preachers. Yet guys are coming out of Bible schools with $200,000 in debt. Are they going to be able to come to a small congregation? And it just doesn't make sense. The math doesn't add up. So this is where preaching schools come in. At preaching school, as most of you guys know, I'm living off of donations from specific congregations and a few people as well. So, and then beyond this, even the school itself, it only has 4 members on staff. And that way they're able to keep the cost extremely low, and we'll just have preachers from the area come in to teach classes. So the cost of the school is super low. And then beyond this, the school itself runs off of donations as well. So we can go into preaching school and not walk away with any debt. I don't pay Brown Trail School of Preaching anything. So this is something that, it helps us out, because that way when students go to preaching schools, they can walk out of there with no debt and be able to come in and preach for smaller congregations. And it's the only way that this seems to work with the education side of this, rather than a one-on-one mentoring. That could also work as well. Beyond this, preaching schools help in the fact of that they're typically extremely sound in their teaching, meaning that they stick to the book. They don't add anything, subtract anything. Galatians 1, 6 through 9, they're not doing that, and they're not preaching to them another gospel. Sometimes at colleges and things like that, different doctrines and ideas can come into it, and typically colleges can be a little bit more left-leaning, especially some of them today, which I won't go through and mention, but they'll put out preachers who are lacking in some areas of doctrine and are straying from the biblical basis in certain areas. So preaching schools are there because they are very sound, they're very airtight in doctrine typically. And beyond this one's kind of fun. Preaching schools also offer technical training. Let's see if I got it on the next slide. Part of this technical training, which I was talking with Ellen about, is I go out and I preach a lot of Sundays. So I've been to a lot of places preaching. I've traveled hours and hours to go out and preach on Sundays. These congregations will reach out to the school and say, hey, we need a preacher. So then us as students will go and we'll fill in. So that way, while we're in preaching school, we're not just getting experience inside of a classroom. We're actually going out and gaining technical training out with congregations, dealing with Bible studies, interactions, and preaching in front of people. It's different than doing it in school. Here's a list of that I have went to so far. As of right now, I think I preached at 14 or 15 congregations across 4 states, and I've been to a lot of these multiple times. Terrell Church of Christ, Terrell, Oklahoma. Fob Willis Church of Christ. This was interesting. There was someone at Fob Willis who was actually a member of the Cody Church of Christ. So yeah, I was like, oh, do you guys know Ed and Vicky? I'm like, yeah. Cool. Let's see here, what else? A couple of them, small towns like Bell's Church of Christ. That was interesting. I went out there. Their preacher, they had him for like 40 years. So this guy was in a pulpit for a long time. And he was a little bit older in age as well. And it's really unfortunate, though. He ended up getting like dementia on set and stuff while he was in a pulpit and while he was working. So the congregation ended up asking him to step down. So it's just one of those sad situations. And for the next few weeks, Bells would reach out and we would go there as students to fill in and help out the congregation. But yeah, he was a really nice guy. He called me a Yankee. It's like, it's been like a couple hundred years since the Civil War. Are we still holding this? I know you're a little older, but I don't think you're that old. Come on now. Oh, yeah, and then Highland Church of Christ, that's a kind of bigger congregation in Fort Worth. That was really good. A couple smaller ones, Sydney Church of Christ, Smithfield Church of Christ, they're at the bottom left. I'm actually in their parsonage, so I preach there once a month, and it's kind of like so they can see how I'm doing and how I'm progressing in school. So if you guys ever have the inclination to hear me preach, I don't know why you would, but if you go on the Smithfield Church of Christ Facebook page about once a month, I'm kind of going through the rotation there. Let's see here. What else we got? University Church of Christ in Tyler, Texas. That one, the preacher had actually lost his mom that week on a Wednesday. So they reached out and they needed someone to come in there and just kind of fill in. So that was really good. That was a bigger congregation as well. And I actually have family in Tyler, so I was able to meet my uncle for the first time. So that was pretty cool. Yeah. Edgewood, that's right in between Dallas and Tyler. They're a supporter of mine. They're a super good congregation, great group of people there. Elmont, another small town. Crum, another small town. Cattle Mills Church of Christ, would be northeast of Dallas a little bit, and that's where there was actually someone at Cattle Mills who was a member of the Northside Church of Christ. Wow. So that was pretty cool. Yeah, I was sitting there, and in the sermon, I mentioned something about Washington just briefly, and he kind of came up to me and was like, "Where at in Washington you from?" I'm like, "Oh, you don't know. It's a small town. You ever heard of Rockford?" And he's like, "Yep." I'm like, all right. He would attend Northside, but he was from Rosalia, so fellow Palouse brethren. I was going to put these on a map, but I did not end up getting the time to. But if you look at it, I mean, it's literally all over Texas that I've been. I've been 3 hours east of Texas. I've been 4 hours west of Texas. I've been up through Oklahoma. I've been down almost to Waco and stuff. So I've been everywhere. But I really do love this aspect of it because you're able to meet just so many great people, and you're able to make so many different connections. And it's really good for technical training for preaching students because you never know what you're going to get thrown at you. There were a couple of times where I'm running a Bible study and someone would chip in with a comment, and I don't know anyone here. So I don't know where they're coming from or anything like that, and the comment will just be kind of off the wall. So I'm like, how am I going to juggle this? But yeah, it's really interesting. It's really good, and I think this is one of the aspects of Brown Trail that I love it, and I love going out and meeting people like this. And you guys can stop me if you ever have any questions with any of this. Another aspect of the technical training that I was going through is actually working through evangelism. This was are you guys familiar with House to House, Heart to Heart? Sound familiar? They run a school of evangelism with Rob Whitaker. And so we ended up going down to the Granbury Street Church of Christ, down a little bit south of Fort Worth. And for one whole week, we went through his school of evangelism and his methodologies and everything. And beyond this, we also went out and applied it. And we gathered together hundreds and hundreds of people and went to outreach this community. And at the end of it all on Friday, there was a big giant barbecue for anyone from the community who wanted to attend. There were 200 people that came to that, I think. 200 people from the community that came to the building in order to just be with them. And that was amazing. There's baptisms because of that. And there are people that are Christians today because of that. Yeah. Even not that long ago, we did something similar. It's with a company called AMC, American Mission Campaign. We did something similar in this tiny, tiny town called Itasca, Texas. I don't know, any of you guys know Itasca? It's tiny. Yeah, you close your eyes, you're through it. Walking. But yeah, so we went to this tiny, tiny community, and we were knocking doors and inviting people to a gospel meeting, but there's a little bit more to it than that. That was a part of Rob Whitaker's program that we're trying to implement. And we ended up having a decent number of people come to that congregation, and there was actually one baptism directly because of that outreach. So you think, you spend one Saturday going and looking out for the community and offering to help, offering benevolence or going through the scriptures and just letting them know that you're there for them. One Saturday, and that's one saved soul because of that. That's pretty amazing. Let's see what else I got. I'm running out of time. We might be racing through some of this. Talking about classes at the Brown Trail School of Preaching now, there are 72 separate courses that I will go through at Brown Trail. Right now I'm halfway through, so I'm finished out 36 of them. And there are, in total, over this 2-year span, 2,400 classroom hours in order to obtain a Bachelor of Biblical Studies. To compare that to something, if you were to get your bachelor's at a 4-year university, you're usually looking at 1,900 classroom hours, give or take. So we're dealing with an additional 500 hours in 2 years instead of 4. So it's a lot, but it's a blessing as well. At Brown Trail, every book of the Bible is taught, usually verse by verse, sometimes word by word. On some of the longer ones that we got to raise through paragraph by paragraph, but every single book of the Bible is taught in these 2 years. We also have additional courses on exegesis. I just finished that one last quarter. That was taught by the director of our school, Kevin Rhodes. He's an extremely intellectual man. And this exegesis is pulling out of the scriptures and understanding the finer points and understanding how to work through them. So it was a very technical course. It was actually on a graduate level. It was a lot. And I finished out that final last Wednesday, and it took 7 hours to finish it out. But yeah, that was a tough class. But we have exegesis, Greek, homiletics. Homiletics is awesome. Greek is also awesome. I love Greek. That has opened up my eyes to the scriptures in a way that I've never seen before. Also, we will do Hebrew, which I am looking less forward to, but it's still good. We have ethics courses, restoration history. That was extremely interesting to learn more about the church in America, getting right around the restoration movement. We have classes on apologetics, denominational doctrines. That came into play actually when I was on the flight here. Denominational doctrines will go through the different denominations and exactly what they believe, so that way when we go out and when we teach and when we encounter them, we kind of have a little bit of a grasp. I was getting in line to come to the airport here, and this guy was ahead of me, and we started making small talk. Come to find out, he's an Orthodox priest with the Orthodox Church. So I was like, I had a little bit of an idea because of the denominational doctrines class, but going through and really being able to pick his brain, especially the difference between them and Catholicism, it was super, super interesting. But yeah, that was that was probably one of my favorite classes. We'll also have critical thinking, evangelism classes, and a ton more. And this is what the class we're looking at right now looks like. We got, as you can see, we have a good mix in here of the young and the slightly more advanced in age. We got, if you look over on the left, there's me and my buddy Davin. He is right around my age, right about 22 years old, and he is just an absolute genius. His father's a preacher, so he's just a little prodigy. He has absolutely awesome knowledge in the scriptures, and he is a great friend of mine. Behind me is Chris Ward. He's the preacher at the Smithfield Church of Christ, where my parsonage is at and where I live at. He's a great brother as well. Beside me, that's Norfleet and Denacia Stitz. They're from Indiana. They are, once again, just amazing. The middle guy there in the jacket, in the blue jacket, that's Cody Martin. He was the lone second-year student. He just graduated Saturday. He's heading up to New Hampshire, I believe, to go work with the congregations up there. He's a Texas boy through and through. And this guy's heading up to the deep, deep Northeast. Like, good luck, my brother in Christ. The older gentleman in the middle, that is Robert Oren. He preached for 9 years before he ended up coming to school. He preached for a congregation initially as a youth minister. And then he moved up into pulpit preaching, and then he went through it for a few years and decided that, he's missing some stuff. There's some stuff that he needs to work on, and he just doesn't know how to do it. So he came to preaching school. He is an absolute encouragement, one of the greatest men I've ever met. Beside him is his son Robert, or his son Cash, and then the man with the beard on the very end is my other friend Eric. He's about my age as well. He, yet again, is just an absolute genius. He was going through college and working as a part-time student and working full-time. His work ethic is just absolutely amazing, and the way that he's able to break down scripture and his philosophy is just awesome. And then we also have parts of our Spanish students in there as well. That's not all of them, but that is a few of them. At Brown Trail, we also have a Spanish department as well as an English department. So there's kind of two separate schools going there. They are all just absolutely great. Another picture of us all. On the right were the two Spanish students when I came in, and they were just an absolute encouragement. At this time, they've already graduated, and they're preaching at congregations now. Here is our current administration at Brown Trail. On the very left is Kevin Rhodes, the director, and he probably is the smartest human being I've ever met in my life. And having classes under him is extremely challenging, but I love him to death, and he is a great guy. He's got a great heart, and I'm truly blessed to have known him. Beside him is Roy Gafford. He is the Dean of Students, and he is probably one of my favorite human beings I've ever met. He takes more of a applicational aspect rather than a scholarly aspect, meaning that he's going to be there, and he's going to be there to build your character. It's going to be more than just a scholarly side of things. He has probably affected me more in my walk with God than most other people have. He's a blessing. Beside him is Pat McIntosh. He is also a great instructor. I just finished out Acts last quarter with him, and he is just, yet again, an awesome guy. I really am so blessed to be there, guys, and I can't stress it enough how thankful I am that you guys have helped make this possible. It's such a blessing. Furthest on the right, the tall fellow is Heath Stapleton. If you guys remember Heath, he came here. He's a good guy. He is in charge of the finances at the school, and he also teaches a few classes as well. We go golfing all the time whenever I have free time, which isn't that often. He's a better golfer than I am, I'll say that. But yeah, yet again, just a great guy. I really am so blessed. This past year, I was talking with a few of you. We went on a couple class trips. We went to Polishing the Pulpit. Has anyone ever heard of Polishing the Pulpit? Right. Nothing else. It's essentially hard to explain. It's a big gathering of Christians, and they're coming together in order to hear different preachers. At one time, there's usually like 10 to 12 different preachers preaching in different areas of this like arena kind of thing. So people will come and they'll pick what preacher they want to go to, and this just constantly goes for 7 days straight of just preachers going and going and going, and you just get to choose. So it's really cool. A lot of really good preachers are there, and that was a blessing to go to. It was in Tennessee, so I got to experience some mountains, which was amazing, and that was eye-opening. Beyond this, we went on a restoration history tour. So right before PTP, we went and we traveled everywhere through Kentucky. We went to Nashville. We went to West Virginia. We went to Pennsylvania, just looking at the restoration history roots in America. So looking at Thomas Campbell, Alexander Campbell, Walter Scott, Barton Stone, and I think I have some pictures of this. And then also while we're on this trip, we went to the Ark Encounter. That's right there. I can't remember where it is. Kentucky? Yeah. That was, you don't think it's as big as it is, but when you see it in person, I got a few pictures. We'll get into the fun stuff here, just to finish up. This was a part of the restoration tour. So are you guys familiar at all with Thomas and Alexander Campbell? A couple Scots coming over and realizing the errors within the Presbyterian Church, and so they went out searching, and they ended up coming to something that is pretty close and is something that is New Testament Christianity, and they're really pioneers in the Americas for the Church of Christ and pioneers for just biblical Christianity coming back, unaltered, no creed books, nothing like that. And up on the left is actually where they made the decision to be baptized for the remission of their sins. That is the exact creek that they did. And that was just a pivotal moment in both of their lives and also American history regarding the church. And then down from there, that is their actual house in West Virginia, I think Bethany, West Virginia, and that's where the Bethany College is. So that was just absolutely amazing to go to and to be able to see where these people you hear about are actually from. Up on the top right, that is the pulpit of Marshall Keeble. Marshall Keeble is probably one of my favorite people within the Restoration movement, probably one of my favorite preachers of all time. The issues that he had to deal with preaching during a time when America was so divided and segregation and everything was so against him, to have the mentality that he had to still preach Christ to any person who would hear it. That's just absolutely amazing, and it just puts everything into such a deeper perspective of how blessed we are here today. Going on from there, this is on the left. This is Hayden, Davin, and I. This was in Nashville, just a picture of us. On the bottom right, or on the bottom, that is the Cane Ridge building where the Cane Ridge revival took place. Barton Stone was a part of that. Pretty big pivotal moment in the American church history. And then up on the top right is his grave as well. There's that ark. I mean, yeah, you see those people on that right and just how small they are compared to it. It's unreal. That's just, yeah, I mean, it's like, you look at it on pictures and everything, but you don't understand just how big it is. Or even if you read it in the scriptures, it's hard to really wrap your mind around the size of it. And here, it just put everything into perspective. It was really cool. So this past year, as I said, in total we have 2,400 classroom hours. So if I'm halfway through, do the math, 1,200 classroom hours I've spent this past year. I've gone through 36 classes, preached at 11, 12 congregations in Texas, traveled all throughout. Daily schedule I'm dealing with, it is extremely busy going to preaching school like this. So 4:15, I'm up. 4:45 to 6 o'clock, I try working out. That really just helps get my mind ready for the day, and just gets me set for the mental strain I'm going to go through on that day. And then 6:30 to 8 o'clock, I study. 8 o'clock to 4 o'clock, I have school. And then usually 5 o'clock to 10 o'clock, yet again, I'm back in it with studying. So, I mean, it's day in, day out. Preaching school is not easy. It's challenging in a lot of different aspects, but it's a blessing. I get a little bit of relaxed time every now and again. On the left, that is Brother Keith Stapleton putting. I put it into the water, I think 3 times on that hole, so I was sitting in the cart. Yeah. He's just taller than me. He's got a weird swing, but he's got to figure it out. In the middle, something that we like to do for fun, we really try to keep our expenses down to a minimum. So that's like trying to figure out what to do in Dallas, Texas to kind of free your mind and not spend a bunch of money is challenging. So what we do is we'll take our dog, Allie and I, we'll go to Cabela's and put him on a leash and just go walk around, go look at stuff and get to interact with people. So that sounds kind of boring, but that's what we do for fun. And then on the right, I did get in a little bit of hunting this last quarter, and then also in the fall. So that was good, just to be able to be out there, kind of clear my mind, try to shoot a deer. I'm not as good as you, but I'm just trying my best. So, but still, it's a blessing. And then this is it. This is the rest of the relaxed time. We went fishing a little bit up on the top right. That's Lake Tawakoni. That's how they tell me to say it, I guess. Or Tawakoni. I don't know. But yeah, so we went fishing there and just took a weekend, Allie and I was preaching over at a congregation there. So we rented an Airbnb and just was able to sit out, read books by the dock, fish a little bit. I caught a catfish. It was pretty cool. Up on the top right, I'm doing a little bit of fabrication in my free time. That's a bumper I'm building for the new car I got. I sold that Ford I had up here. Sold that, got a little runaround rig, so a little bit of welding on my free time to help clear the mind. And then bottom left, that's just a picture of Allie and I. I don't know what I would do without her, and I don't know how I would ever do preaching school without her. She is the greatest blessing in my life. Just a wonderful woman. And then that is Allie and I in the middle there trying to cook, and our dog is there as well. Yeah, so we're here, we're finishing out maybe a little bit early. But yeah, any questions you guys got? Anything?
I was wondering if Allie needs to go with you to these little towns or big towns when you preach.
Oh yeah. Oh, she's always coming, yeah. I would not want to drive 3 hours in the middle of nothing, Texas without Allie. I'm telling you that much. Man, yeah. Yeah, she makes life interesting. Anything else?
Yeah, I read your letter, and Allie did a lot of traveling around,
Yeah.
even out of the United States, I think.
She's still within the U.S. I didn't even mention, Allie's got a job. She's working on the marketing team for a company called HTO. It's all throughout the South, a bunch of different locations. It's a chain of basically small tea shops, sweet tea. But yeah, so for her work, a lot of times she's in marketing, so she'll go to the grand openings of different areas of it. So she was in Oklahoma City last week. The week before that, like New Mexico and all different places. So I think she's going to Florida here in not too long. But she's loving her job. That's all going super well. Yeah, life is good. Life is good.
When you're done with school, are you moving back up here?
Yeah, I didn't even talk. I missed so much stuff. I'm sorry, guys. I filled this quick, man. But yeah, so that's the plan is I'm heading back up to Washington. I graduate May 17th of next year. So I'm turning around and I'm heading back up here. So,
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Absolutely. Yeah, hopefully moving back into the area and everything like that. Lord willing, of course. There's something else I was going to talk about with that. I can't remember.
Just to encourage you to come back, I have a turkey. He's about this high.
Oh, yeah.
That's just his head.
I'll shoot him. I'll do it.
I've been saving him. We call him Big Tom. He's bigger than the one you got at first. So just remember that is the perks.
You're too kind. You're too kind. Oh, that's awesome. Oh, this is what I wanted to bring up. So after school, my plan obviously is to come back, and Lord willing, depending on how things work out, I will be working as a welder fabricator in my shop 2 days a week, 10 hours a day, so 20 hours, get a decent amount of money that way, and that way it frees me up to preach for whatever congregation. So, and then...
I'm going to talk to him.
I got to graduate first, okay? Come on. The other option too, which I don't think I'm gonna end up doing, is I can go online to Heritage Christian University, and it would be completely for free coming out of preaching school, and walk away with a bachelor's degree and something like that. But I don't know. I've talked with a few guys. A preacher down there I know fairly well. That's what he ended up doing after he attended preaching school. And really, he just did it for the piece of paper. And he didn't really gain that much information and that much knowledge. So for what I want to do and for the congregations that I want to be with and the work that I want to do, I don't think a piece of paper is going to help me much. And I don't think going and getting the bachelor's and then working on graduate programs or anything like that is not who I am. I'm just a small town welder guy that decided to go to preaching school to preach the gospel to people. It's
A Yankee.
a Yankee. Yes, a Yankee as well. But yeah, I just don't think it's a part of the plan for me.
I love it. That's what Libby called me.
Sweet. Anything else? What you got, neighbor?
Hi, neighbor. Do you feel like all this studying and preparing, your love of Jesus and your heart for people is still there and growing?
Yeah.
You didn't get so lost in the word that you forgot why you're
No.
doing this?
No, and that's something that it's hard when you're studying scripture so much, day in, day out, to really have that appreciation. But when you take the moments to stop and think about why you're doing this, and something that I do a lot, and I'm not trying to get sappy or anything, but I think about you guys. When I get down there and it's day in, day out classwork, and I'm going to congregations and things just aren't what I'm used to, I think about the people here. And yeah,
Well, we love you. We pray for you a lot.
that's good. That's awesome. And I appreciate the letters that you guys send. Just know how much that lifts us up. That means the memes, that's what I'm talking about. But yeah, it really does. It really lifts me up. A lot of times it's tough down there, but you guys help me get through it. Yep. All right. Anything else pressing? We're good.
Thanks, Tanner.
Yep.
What did you do